Well, hey there, thanks for joining us for this Flashback Friday. This is a special edition again. This time we take a look back 50 years ago this weekend. It was the Woodstock Music Festival in Bethel, New York. Thanks for joining us again, guys. This is Rock Hard Riffs. I'm your host, Mo Beans, and it's Flashback Friday. Woohoo! We're talking about the Woodstock Music Festival that went on 50 years ago in the state of New York. It was actually in Bethel, New York, not Woodstock. It's about 40 miles away, somewhat close. It was originally planned for Woodstock, and then it moved to another area, and then they decided on a farm in Bethel, and we're going to talk about that and all the big acts that went there. Now, the things that were most memorable for me, the acts, one primarily was the first one, and that was Richie Havens. He was up early. He was up earlier than he was supposed to be on stage earlier, and went on longer than he was supposed to, but they weren't ready, and so they just tell him, keep on playing, buddy, keep on playing. He did something like 5 encores until he got to the point where he just started making stuff up. And that's where the song Freedom came from. Now, if you watch, he never frets anything. He just bars, constantly bars like this. And I was pretty influenced by that. I thought, man, if you can make that kind of music just by doing this, wow, that's cool, and I'm going to copy it. And I have. Now, some of the other really big people that were actually created out of the festival, one was 7 years after with Alvin Lee. They were virtually unheard of in the United States at that point, and this made 7 years after. Great band, Alvin Lee, the great Alvin Lee has passed, and of course you can still watch him on the movies. Now, there are several documentaries out about Woodstock. Of course, I've watched the original Woodstock movie I don't know how many times, and some documentaries about it as well. There's some fascinating things that I have learned. If somebody says to you they saw Jimi Hendrix at Woodstock, they're either lying or they just don't remember very well. Odds are. Because Jimmy didn't play it till the very end, and as you see in this picture, this is basically what he was looking at. Most people left because of the rainstorm the day before. Most people, that's another little fact that not too many people know, that most people left after the rain. There were approximately 400,000 people at the festival, which was originally billed as an Aquarian exposition. 3 days of peace and music. It was held at Matt Yasker's 600-acre dairy farm in Bethel, as we spoke about before. Now, why was Woodstock so important? What was the big deal? Well, there had been other festivals that had been held before, and they were kind of iffy, kind of hit and miss. But really, if you have 4 people together, let alone 400,000, somebody's not going to get along. And that's what happened at prior festivals. There was violence and, all kinds of drug abuse and this and that. But what really astounded people is that there was no notable violence at the concert. Now, some say that there were bursts. There's no substantiated evidence of anybody being born at the festival. 2 people did die. One person died of a drug overdose, and another person was accidentally run over in their sleeping bag by a tractor. The driver just thought it was a sleeping bag, didn't know that somebody was in it, and they were run over and they were killed. Very unfortunate, but still very peaceful. Now, the folks that threw this concert were Artie Korngold, Michael Lang, John P. Roberts, and Joel Rosenman. Here are a few facts you may or may not have known. All of the organizers were in their 20s. And of course, it didn't happen in Woodstock. They almost had to shut down on the first day. They had to decide if they had enough material to either finish building the stage or finish building the fence. And they pondered this, and of course they decided to build the stage. And therefore, when the people started arriving, they just went right through chain link fences, and it became a free concert. They also were not very well prepared with food, and if you've watched the concert, you're familiar with that. They had 1 hamburger stand left, and that was about it. They had granola for breakfast in the morning. Now, here's an interesting fact. The United States Army airlifted supplies and performers in and out of the concert. That's pretty cool. Also, they provided their own security. The traffic, as you can imagine, was just an absolute nightmare. Now, at the time of the concert, Bethel was the third largest city in New York. That's pretty funny. There were, of course, thousands of medical cases, but again, only 2 people actually passed away. Again, notable people there were Janis Joplin. This was Crosby, Stills, and Nash's opening concert. This is the first concert they had played together, and it was Woodstock. Pretty amazing. Another very notable act in this was Sly and the Family Stone. Wow, could Sly really put it on? You can see his head steaming when they're playing Higher. I want to take you higher! There's steam coming off of his head, and that's in summer. Sly and the Family Stone, wow. Man, did they really turn on the juice. Those guys were just ultra entertaining. You cannot take your eyes off of them. Country Joe and the Fish was another notable, and Santana. You watched the movie, all the performances were great. They picked really great performances. So again, guys, that was 50 years ago this weekend. They were planning on another Woodstock for now, but again, that was canceled. You know, the original Woodstock is like one of those just one-off things. It's best probably to just leave it alone and embrace what happened. Probably best not to try to recreate that. They got really lucky as it was back then. Alright guys, well thank you so much for joining us here on our Flashback Friday here at Rock Hard Riffs. I'm your host Mo Beans. Please subscribe if you haven't already, guys. Thanks, and we'll see you next video.